What up, perps? Kid Copious. Back in the Christmas spirit. Purple State Party, you know what we're doing here. We're repping America, the center, common sense, freedom, peace in the Middle East, and Merry Christmas all. And I don't mean Christmas as some sort of commercialized marketing strategy, and I don't mean Christmas in a religious sense. I mean Christmas in a time to remember that we're all a bunch of bags of flesh spinning on a rock around the sun. And we need to remember the love that we have for our families, both the ones we were born into, the ones we were adopted into, and the ones that we chose. So peace, y'all, on this holiday season. Let's get to it. Let's get this thing crack-a-lackin'. There you go. There's your loud noise. We're going to start the show off talking about one of my favorite subjects, numbers. I don't got a head for numbers. Basic math, super good at. Other math, yeah, not so much. Remembering numbers, yeah, a little bit of that dyslexia when it comes to numbers. But I love the way numbers are manipulated. I just don't like the way that people fall for it every single time. And I heard a great example on the radio a couple weeks ago. Kind of been saving it. But let's say there's $1 million grant for traffic safety from the state to go to a local law enforcement agency. The department can have its officers respond to every single traffic accident and take a report instead of no report, where they just say, the driver's settled, no report needed. But if they take the report, they get one traffic collision. Then, after they build their numbers up, they get that mill. To show that the process is working, they stop taking the reports, and the numbers come down. See, numbers only count if they are counted. When we look at things like crime, the border, COVID, fentanyl deaths, you could see how these numbers can be manipulated. If a woman's purse is snatched on the streets and she goes to report it to the police, and the police basically convince her there's no sense taking a report, there's nothing they can do, then was a crime committed? It's the same thing with the border. If they're not counting the ones they know got away, they're not giving us true numbers. Fentanyl deaths, they like to hide it under opioid, kind of put it away in a category that's, meant to make us think that it's a much broader scope of drugs. Yeah, the opioid crisis is out of control, and it is a lot of things other than fentanyl, but fentanyl numbers are quite high. And they did the same thing when reporting on COVID deaths. If somebody died of something, but they also had COVID, COVID was listed as a secondary cause of death. Was it? Well, for the numbers, just like that police agency, the numbers only matter if they're actually being counted and validated. That's kind of the problem we have right now, because we base a lot of our information and decisions on numbers. When they throw out numbers of, millions of tons of trash in a landfill, as we're going to see, or the amount of carbon dioxide in the air since man became industrialized. But what do those numbers mean? So, let's move on. Let's talk about some really low numbers. Biden's approval. This was a great one because it really shows the cynicism of government. Abortion is killing our future voter base. Don't worry, we got an app for that, open border policy. Yeah, probably not exactly accurate, but yeah, that is really a cynical way of looking at it. But we were talking about numbers just a minute ago. And here's Fox News blowing up evidence of Joe Biden's border crisis on a massive floor-to-ceiling screen. That are the migrant encounters. And again, you're framing these numbers migrant encounters, but what does that really mean? That means people who have come across the border. 200,000 since December 1st, 10,000 a day, 11,600 in the last 24 hours. Does anybody think that that's sustainable? Minnesota changed their flag. Apparently there was a Native American galloping away and a settler plowing his field with a rifle nearby. So they changed it. It looks a lot like the Somali flag. They got a lot of Somalis there, including Omar, that piece of shit. But yeah, you can see right down there, it does look a lot like Somalia. The country is, without hyperbole, beginning to tear itself apart. The United States are becoming a lot less united right now. We're seeing battles. California, Florida governors going head to head. Oklahoma has one of the biggest weed shops in the state because Texas outlaws it. We're starting to really pull apart on fundamental ideas. And having a state flag that is that close to the Somali flag, yeah, it ends up like this. From the river to the sea, don't you know? Yeah. More numbers. The number of things that are going wrong for Biden is increasing. There's no evidence on Joe Biden. Nope. Remove Trump from the ballot. Yeah. It's shocking what's going on. We're going to get into it in a minute about Colorado, but again, we have a leader who is obviously corrupt. I think he represents the average politician, which, if you go back in history and look at some of my old videos, that was my main complaint about Joe Biden. He was a career politician, and I expected this kind of stuff. Millions in bribes and cover-ups. That's what I expected. I expected a career politician to be lining his pockets with our tax dollars and from other countries who then get our tax dollars. Either way, it's our money paying to make these people rich. Bidenomics, he paints the lipstick on Biden recovery. So he's going to recover from his own mess, is basically what they're saying. That's what we have leading us, is career politicians. People, again, who are getting rich off of this, therefore, they don't have to live with their consequences. Numbers. Biden's signature law was supposed to lower drug prices, but it's doing just the opposite. Now, of course, the White House could come back and say, no, we did. We lowered the cost on things. But what it really was you lower the cost on Medicare prescriptions, so the pharmaceutical companies raised the cost on private insurers. That's all they did. So yeah, you got some drug prices down, but you caused some drug prices to go up. And let's look at this. During the Trump administration, prices for medical care commodities rose 3.3%, while prices have risen 8.8% so far during the Biden administration. So where is this true lowering cost of prescriptions that you keep bragging about? Since August of 22, when the IRA was passed, medical care commodity costs have jumped 5%. So you may have lowered it by a couple percentages on the Medicare side, but then they just rose it on the private side. If you're going to do something, it needs to benefit everybody in America. I mean, I would think that that's kind of common sense. Speaking of common sense, if Newsom read Larry Elder's new book of Undeniable Truths, their policies don't work. Their policies rely on gobs and gobs of money. We've been over this. Their policies are not about individual freedoms. They're not about individuals doing better for themselves. It's about the state taking a bunch of money. I just got a bonus at my work of $1,200. I only got to keep $750. I'm a little bit better off, but I know people at work could have used that extra, $450? $450. Taken right off the top of our bonuses. To go to people like Gavin Newsom and his crazy-ass political views. California has lost 25% of income taxes. Now a new budget reality must set in. This is an opinion piece from the Sacramento Bee. But the numbers here are fairly accurate. This is the state's own budget oversight committee estimating that income taxes fell a stunning 25%. And the pattern appears to be continuing this year because the state's heavy reliance on income tax. And why? Look at mortgage payments. In the past 2 years, since Biden's gotten here, the average mortgage payment has risen from $3,500 to $5,400. That's almost $2,000. So they get less sales tax revenue because people don't have money to buy things. Corporations are leaving or restructuring. So there's been a drop in corporate tax revenue. So we are running into a huge problem here. Even if Sacramento exhausts its $22 billion in reserves, it still faces $46 billion of budget shortfall. But meanwhile, they're raising the cost on everybody. They're subsidizing every dumb idea that's out there to deal with things such as the homeless, drugs, crime. They're giving insurance, they're paying out money to people who aren't even legally in this country. We could discuss immigration and immigration reform. That's fine. I'm all for that. But the fact is, we are giving money to people who are not putting back into the system. California has survived these before. But like they say here, not without severe pain and leaders who don't sugarcoat the problem. There you go. And why are they so worried? Because the state budget here in California has doubled in just 6 years. That is a lot of fat. All right, you don't double your budget without a bunch of stupid shit being thrown in there. We just discussed some of that. But that's what's going to need to come out of the budget. I mean, they talk about right here, the solution. Newsom should make every effort to dive into the existing fiscal year budget and cut discretionary spending where possible. For example, yay, a win. Nurses are getting at $25 an hour. But that alone is $4 billion for the state. Because the state employs nurses in state-run medical facilities and blah, 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 blah. Fa la 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 la. Sorry, a little Christmassy there. Reckless spending eventually is going to catch up with you. And here you go. Here's some more fun numbers. $750 a month was given to homeless people in California. What they spent it on is more evidence that universal basic income works. All right. So you want to prove that it works. Well, we're going to go through here. 36% was spent on food, 20 on housing, 12 on transportation, 11 on clothes, 6% on healthcare, and 13% on other expenses that were not classified. But more importantly, it dispels the myth that these people will use money for illicit purposes. Only about 2% of the $750 per month was spent on alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs. A majority of that money was spent on cigarettes. Cigarettes, heavily taxed. $2 a pack. So if you smoke, you're giving the government about $2 every single day. That's the math on it. Weed is taxed insanely. Everything else we already know, gas, all that shit. But remember at the beginning, I talked about numbers being validated. Well, this is one of those things. Out of the $750 that was just handed to these people, only 2% was spent on alcohol, cigarettes, or drugs. Sounds sort of successful, except when you keep in mind that the people who were chosen for the project were cherry-picked. We already know this. We already know that this Ben Henwood here wants his study to succeed, so he's going to cherry-pick the participants. All right? And you're counting on the participants who want to keep the gravy train going to self-report. So, sure, they could say that they didn't buy drugs. That's good. We still have that 13% of unclassified money. But it's also the fungibility of money. They didn't spend the $750 per month on drugs. They spent other money on drugs. And you could come up with this number. Yay, it's successful. Let's give every street person $750 a month as they flock in from other states. Because could you blame them? If you're going to be homeless, California is a pretty easy place to be homeless. California takes care of you. And there's lots of places where you won't get rained on because there's not a lot of rain. That's the madness that these people play with these numbers. Giving people $750 is great. But let's get into some qualifications. Let's get these people clean. Let's fix them. And then we could help them out. See? Not just giving them money. Just giving them money is, So I saw this in a community magazine. Why is Athens looking inside my containers? Athens is a trash company. They are going around in these things they call lid flippers, inspecting the contents of our trash. Right there. Senate Bill 1383, compliance requirements. Compliance. Avoid a notification tag by properly recycling your organics and food waste in the green barrel. What? No. First of all, you start putting food waste into your green barrel, all that means is that you're going to have to wash your green barrel. Okay? I put my lawn clippings, I put my branches, my leaves, stuff like that into the green bin. Food waste, fuck you. I'm not putting food waste in there. I do compost, so it makes it a little bit easier. But if you expect me to stay on target here. The state of California is forcing the trash company to drive around and inspect your trash. Bottom line, that's where we have a waste of money. You are now driving up the cost of trash service. See, that's the problem. These good ideas that cost a lot of fucking money, but don't go anywhere. Who cares if my lawn clippings, where they end up? I pay somebody to take them away. Just take them away. Okay? If there's money to be made in composting for you guys, do it. And instead of building reservoirs, California becomes second state to pass a rule turning recycled sewage water into drinking water. See, part of the bullshit here is how they say full reservoirs do not ensure plentiful water for years into the future. Okay, cool. I get it. All right. I am fully supportive of using recycled sewage for irrigation for, plants, flowers, crops, whatever. But I go around to these sites all the time, and there are warnings that say, do not drink. This is on the sprinkler systems. Do not drink recycled wastewater. All right? So if we're putting up warning signs right now, I don't know why we want to move into this, okay? There may be some good science behind it. That's fine. Put it through Mother Earth for a couple decades, and I'm sure it ends up sort of clean. But we should be collecting our rainwater, and you do that in reservoirs, okay? Address that, and then make us drink poop water. Biden's big spending to build 2 EV charging stations earns him the Squeal Award. This is given out by a senator, Joni Ertz. She does this as her monthly mission to identify where to identify where to cut wasteful spending and make Washington squeal. And so far, Biden's massive electric vehicle charging program has produced 2 charging stations in 2 years. So as Ertz says here, it's a good thing Santa's sleigh is pulled by a team of reindeer and not an electric vehicle, or he would never complete his Christmas trip, especially if he was planning on using Biden's battery chargers. It's wasteful spending. Just in battery charging, Okay, she's trying to claw back $7.5 billion. And she's also going after another $7.5 billion. Or that's, never mind. I'm getting my numbers all confused. I told you I'd do that. I warned you. If electric vehicles are truly the future, then private enterprise will fill that void. The government forcing it down our throats is not what we elect the government to do. We elect the government to keep the lights on, okay? Not turn them off. We don't elect them to appoint and to force companies to search through our trash. The problem we have right now is that we are surrendering control to our government. And too many people are sitting back and taking it. And that's one of the reasons why we have the problems we have right now. I get it in the grand scheme of things, $7.5 billion is not a lot of money. It's the symbolism. I'm going to cover that a little bit more at the end. Stick around. I hope you do. I've got a good message. But the money is a major part of Mr. Biden's climate change agenda. The EPA is proposing stringent tailpipe emissions that would require 2/3 of new vehicle sales, to be electric by 2032. So the government is going to tell us what we can and cannot drive. Is that what we elected them for? If enough people were worried about gas-powered vehicles, they would stop buying gas-powered vehicles. The reality is that we have to cut a deal between what will work and what's good for the planet. And the rules that they're proposing on the average citizen are draconian. Comes from Dracos, Greek. That's not what I elect my officials for. To tell me what to do. I'm tell them what to do. Their job is to get it done and enforce it. I don't know how we got in this mess. As part of his desire to get all these chargers, he waived the Buy America rule that required taxpayer-funded projects to be supplied with domestic materials intended to lessen U.S. dependency on China. So he waives it so China can make more money. That's not what we elect. We didn't elect our leaders to give our enemies money. But again, he's probably going to veto any attempt to roll it back. And Ertz concludes by saying if the parts aren't made in America, as mandated by law, they aren't going to be put together by Santa's elves at the North Pole either. It's going to be the Chinese. Again, this is the great ideas with bad practices just don't work. Here's another one. Maine was on the verge of adopting California EV mandates, but power outage delayed vote. There was a state of emergency. And as a fellow Democrat of the governor says, forcing Mainers to purchase cars and trucks powered by electricity when our grid is insufficient, charging stations are far and few between, and a storm like yesterday's would render 80% of the cars useless is, to say the least, ill-advised. And why would those cars be useless? Because they run on electricity, and the electricity runs out. So then you start powering your house with your car. Eventually the car's going to run out. Then what? Average citizens are now going to have to incur a cost to get their car somewhere to charge it. They're going to have to pay a flatbed to come out and pick it up. Because not all of them have charging at home. The ones that can charge at home will be able to charge their cars. But when they make 80% of the cars electric, that means people in apartment buildings are going to be stranded. These kinds of mandates are coming down on the back of the poor and the middle class, and it needs to end. It needs to end. Look, the economic impact of Britain's net zero climate should serve as a warning for America. They did a study. British businesses were paying more than double in 2022 than what U.S. businesses pay for electricity. This luxury net zero policy, which only the rich can afford, has been devastating for ordinary Britons just trying to heat their homes and get to work. And that's what's coming to America. Right in front of it. And it's all based on the fact that renewables aren't cheap and they aren't reliable. The report convincingly demonstrates how Britain was conned into net zero by deceptive and illusionary promises of cheap wind power. Fudging the numbers. So the Colorado Supreme Court has removed Trump from the 2024 state ballot, citing the 14th Amendment. Hey guys, this is what an actual attack on democracy looks like. It is. As they continually say that Trump is a threat to democracy, they're literally threatening democracy with this kind of action. You know, and this was, of course, written by some liberal rag, as you'll see in a second here. The ruling was blasted by critics as undemocratic, despite legislation under Section 3 of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution barring anyone engaged in insurrection or rebellion from holding federal office. Of course, this refers more to, like, the Civil War guys. Hey, cool, whatever. But are we still pretending that January 6th was an insurrection or a rebellion? Really? I mean, the police did let people in. The only person who actually died was shot by the police, but nobody seemed to care about that. And even if there were protesters who attacked police officers, and that's bad, and they should be punished for that. Okay? Some of the people who got jail time for January 6th deserved it. That's fine. But it was not an insurrection or a rebellion. So therefore, even if Trump incited it, which I don't believe he did, okay? I don't believe he did. I think he did about 50% help, 50% hurt. But it wasn't an insurrection or a rebellion. It was a protest. Okay? That was a protest. So you can relabel it how you want, but it's malarkey. Colorado saves democracy by not allowing people to vote for a preferred candidate. Whatever. It's never going to work. And I will say that I found that this morning, so that 28 minutes ago would be sometime Saturday morning, Newsom rejects plan to block Trump from California ballot. Because he basically says, we'll beat him at the polls. Okay, cool. That's fine. Like, I respect you, Newsom. Because I would support removing Trump from the ballot if I believed or there was evidence that was actually an insurrection or a rebellion. All right? Some people, some people got pissed and it got out of hand. Same thing happened around the country the summer before. And that's the way it was treated. People were protesting and it got out of hand. You know, I just want the standards applied equally. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I look at it. If the standards are applied equally, then fine. But they're not being applied equally. And I'm glad Newsom's not going to pull that BS in California. I think most of it's just arrogance. But, you know, I will say one thing about Gavin Newsom. I think he's being led by the far left and the Democrats who control California more so than he's coming up with his own original ideas. Because this does not seem like a Democratic Party type thing in California. The rejection, I think, comes from the man himself. Every now and then, Gavin Newsom shows a little bit of common sense. The reparations thing, the Trump on the ballot thing. So I do give him credit. Let's not get out of hand. I'm not going to ever vote for the guy. But in the interest of fairness, we need to see those kind of things. Lately, we've been, well, at least I have watched a lot of Pluto TV, as you may know. And one of the ads is about the hostages being held by Hamas. Well, Gotti here, he died. He was wounded. They never really did much to help him, and he died. And what makes that important is that he was the first American hostage to die. That's not cool, man. Now, I'm not saying that because he's American, He's worth more than the other hostages. Okay? I've already condemned Hamas for what they did. All right? But this is the moment where they've now involved us directly. One of our citizens. Okay? One of our citizens. If you're on a team, you could feel bad for something that happened to the member of the other team. That's fine. But when somebody on your side is taken, that should change it. This should end all of the stupid protests. All right? Because now an American has died in this. And that changes things. It changes it. It does not make him more important than any of the other people out there. Any of them, even on both sides. It does not make, he is a human being, equal to all other human beings. But because he's an American, that changes everything. So that was kind of depressing. I miss the old days where I used to always have like the funny stuff at the end. So we're going to do some funny stuff. Okay, that's my Christmas present. That's what I wanted. Gingerbread house in California listed on Zillow for $1.9 million. Yeah, not far from the truth, really. I mean, I wonder if I bought an empty lot and stuck like a cargo container on it and put a camp toilet in there. I wonder how much I could sell it for or rent it for. Hey, any mention of a gingerbread house is a good thing, right? Woman thinks it's sweet that you keep comparing her to Tennessee whiskey and a glass of brandy, but also maybe you should join Alcoholics Anonymous. I was a member of AA, man. I find that pretty funny, though, because it is true. Country music, and I love country music, but they do love their alcohol. I'll tell you that much. I mean, the rappers seem to like the Xanax. The country guys seem to like alcohol. Oh, fucking madness, man. I'm just glad we got to go out that way with a little bit of humor. So this year, our family developed a little bit of a budget to bring a little Christmas spirit to some people around the world. And the way we did it was, my daughter plays a lot of online video games. She knows people around the world. She's been playing with some of them for more than 5 years now. And a couple of them, for reasons outside of their control, are going to have a somewhat crappy Christmas. So we want to send them a little bit of money, some gift cards, maybe just some V-Bucks on Fortnite. You know, to you and me, it might be money that's being wasted on a video game skin, but I know one kid, all he wants is the John Wick character. You know? I want you to reach in your heart and find people. Maybe ask your kids about similar kids in those kind of conditions. Because to you and me, we might think, hey, it's just a $20 gift card to buy some V-Bucks on Fortnite. But to the person who receives the gift, it's showing that they're loved. And that somebody in this fucking crappy planet cares about them. In Japan, they put a lot of effort into wrapping a present. And oftentimes, the wrapping can be more expensive than the gift. And I was watching a show about it, and the Japanese lady who did all the fancy wrapping said, it's not what's inside that's important. It's the gift. We can give to these big monolithic charities all we want. I send money to the Shriners Hospital. But this Christmas, please, try to find a couple people, even if it's just one person, and make a little impact on that person's life and let them know that you care. Because it may be an insignificant video game skin to the rest of us, but to that one kid, that one tiny little ounce of love might be all they need to get through. I'm not saying this because I think I'm special. I am not special. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party, and so are you. Merry Christmas, y'all. Keep peace in your heart. Keep peace in your heart. And do some good this Christmas. And dance it out.